In this video, we'll review some tips and guidelines for safety in the science lab at home. Many of us have performed experiments in science class at school. Whether we're measuring solids, pouring liquids, combining chemicals, hands-on experiments are always a highlight of learning science. This year, when many of us are learning remotely at home, we may not have the same tools we have used in the past. However, that doesn't need to stop us from doing our own experiments. If we get creative, we'll find all of the materials and tools that we need right here at home, most of them here in the kitchen. But even though we're doing our experiments at home and not in a science lab at school, we still need to keep in mind safety. Let's go over some key safety guidelines to make sure that our experiments are successful and safe. Number 1, make sure you get permission for your experiment and you have adult supervision. That includes getting your procedure approved by your teacher and getting permission from an adult at home. Make sure there's an adult present when you're conducting your experiment. Share your procedure with that person so they know what the plan is and they can assist you. You and a parent will also need to read, sign, and return the safety contract that your teacher gives you. Make sure you get permission to use the materials you need. Even if you're using simple materials like dish soap or vinegar, you want to make sure someone else didn't have plans for them already. You wouldn't want to leave someone without a way to wash their hands. And remember, supervision doesn't just mean you, it also means your materials. Never leave your materials unattended. Number 2, avoid heat. I know, we're doing experiments about temperature changes. What do you mean, avoid heat? Well, that means no microwave. No toaster or toaster oven. And definitely no regular oven or stove either. Why not? After all, it's your home. Well, at school, you most likely wouldn't be heating up these materials to use in an experiment, so we won't at home either. Since this is a school project, we'll be following the same safety guidelines that we would in the building. Some materials like metal heat up quickly and retain their heat for a long time. They're often too hot to handle, even if they don't look it. And metal and microwaves definitely don't mix. Plus, when some materials are heated, they produce toxic fumes that are dangerous to inhale. Not to mention that an open flame on the stove or an oven that gets to hundreds of degrees just isn't a necessary risk to take for your experiment, especially when there are so many alternatives. It's just not worth the risk. So instead of heating your materials up and then allowing them to cool, design an experiment where you can cool your materials down in the refrigerator or freezer and then allow them to heat up. You can measure a lot of the same ideas, but without the risk of injury or damage. Number 3, choose the best materials. When it comes to choosing your materials, think of the least risky or dangerous version of what you want to do. Rather than a glass, which can shatter into sharp pieces, use a plastic cup. For the same reason, instead of a ceramic or glass bowl, use a plastic container, a takeout container, or Tupperware. Use a digital thermometer whenever possible. If you have a liquid thermometer, make sure it doesn't contain mercury, which is highly toxic. If your experiment requires the use of different liquids, stick to non-toxic liquids like dish soap, oil, or vinegar. If it's edible, or it's meant to be used on your skin, it's probably safe to use in your experiment. Do not use any cleaning liquids like laundry detergent, ammonia, or bleach, which can damage your skin and also have toxic fumes that are dangerous to breathe in. If any materials get in your eye, use the sink to rinse out your eye for 15 minutes. That's a long time. Make sure you call for adult assistance immediately. Number 4, dress for success from head to toe. Tie back long hair to keep it from drifting or dipping into your experiment. Avoid loose clothing and take off any big jewelry for the same reason. If your experiment involves handling liquids, make sure you wear safety goggles. That way you'll avoid getting any in your eye. If you have an apron or smock, go ahead and wear it to prevent getting your clothes messy. If you don't, that's fine. Just wear clothes that you don't mind getting a little bit messy. When it comes to your feet, cover them up, and not just with socks. No open-toed or open-back shoes either. No sandals or flip-flops. Oh, yikes, let's not even go there. Ah, that's better. Make sure you wear closed-toed shoes when performing your experiment. They'll help protect your feet in case you drop or spill something, plus they'll help you avoid slipping if you spill any liquids. And while we're on the subject of feet, make sure you use them during your experiment. Stand at a table or counter instead of sitting. If you're sitting down, you risk spilling materials into your lap. No bueno. Safety guideline number 5, prepare for cleanup. Before you even start your experiment, think through how you might clean up if something goes wrong. Especially if your experiment involves liquids, make sure you have paper towels or cloth towels available to clean up any spills. If you spill something, stop your experiment to clean it up right away to avoid letting a mess get bigger or a floor get slipperier. More slippery. For all experiments, make sure that you have a brush or a broom and dustpan available to clean up any mess, and especially in case something glass shatters. You don't want to use your hands to pick up broken glass. Trust me. After you sweep it up, make sure you put it into a paper bag or cardboard box, something that it won't tear through. Don't use a plastic bag to clean up broken glass. Never eat or drink the materials you use in your experiment, no matter how delicious they are. In fact, don't eat or drink anything at all while you're conducting your experiment, just to make sure you don't accidentally consume some of your materials. And when it comes to disposing of your materials when you're done, water and dish soap can go down the sink, and so can ice, but other liquids should be put in another container, like a used peanut butter jar. Then that container can go into the trash. Don't pour them down the sink where they might contribute to clogs. Also, don't try to put them back into the original containers. It's most likely going to cause a mess, and more importantly, it could contaminate whatever's left in the container. Those are the major safety guidelines for doing experiments at home. That was a lot, so let's go through the main points. First, make sure you get permission to use your materials and do your experiment. You must get your experiment approved by your teacher before you start, and you must turn in your safety contract. You also need to perform your experiment under adult supervision, and you personally are responsible for supervising your own materials at all times. Second, your experiment unfortunately cannot use any sources of heat. There are so many alternatives, it's just not worth the additional risk to you or your home. Third, choose the best materials. Use plastic instead of glass, and only use materials that are non-toxic. Number 4, dress for success by tying back long hair, avoiding loose clothes, wearing safety goggles whenever you're handling liquids, and wearing closed-toed shoes when performing your experiment. And 5, prepare for cleanup. Anticipate the mistakes that can happen and have towels, a broom, and a dustpan ready when you start your experiment. Doing experiments is an important part of learning science, even while we're learning from home. Follow these guidelines to stay safe and make sure you can continue doing more experiments in the future.